Welcome back to the Infinite Restaurants podcast, where we share insights, perspectives, and stories from the front lines of hospitality. I'm your host, Andrew Cook. Infinite Restaurants is brought to you by Harbor Food Service, a fourth-generation family-owned company whose purpose is to nourish the spirit of their Harbor Foods Group family, our industry, and the communities they serve. Speaking of Harbor Food Service, today we're sitting down with the owner and CEO of Harbor Foods Group, Justin Erickson. Among other topics, we'll be talking about the high value that he and his company place on investing in communities and their customers.
That penny on the dollar profit margin sometimes prevents people in our industry from doing the right thing. Sometimes customers need things and they cost money and it doesn't make sense based on that penny that we're making, but it needs to happen because it's a long-term relationship and those customers are so valuable to us that we need to invest in whatever that service is up front.
And about why he chooses to do what he does.
People ask me occasionally, do you own this company? Do you run this company for the money? Is that the motivator?
Mm-hmm.
No, if the motivator was the money, I'd sell the company because
Yeah.
I'd have a lot more money.
Uh-huh.
It's it's that passion for the business and really creating something great and being a part of these communities and their success.
And with that, let's jump into the interview and give Justin Erickson, fourth-generation owner and CEO of Harbor Foods Group, a chance to fill in his own backstory. Justin, welcome to Infinite Restaurants. How are you?
Good, Andy. Thanks for taking the time today. It's good to spend time talking with you about Harbor Foods Group. Little background about me. I'm fourth-generation owner of my family's company. My great-grandfather started in 1923, Aberdeen, and was a chef working up in a logging camp and decided to make his way into town and buy a wholesale business with a friend of his, and the rest is sort of history.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but your grandfather, was he born in the United States or did he move here? Was he an immigrant when he was chefing?
Great-grandfather was an immigrant from Sweden.
And this is the founder we're talking about.
This is our founder.
Cool. How old was he when he came to the United States?
Oh, that's a great question, Andy. I'm not sure I know the answer, but he was young. I want to say he was 19, 20.
Sort of that young buck looking to make his mark on the world. And
young buck looking to make his mark and roll up his sleeves and work hard and go for the American dream.
So he came in for the timber bust. I'm making an assumption because he was a chef at a timber company.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
And as you can imagine, Sweden and the Scandinavian countries are also big timber, resource-driven economies, and that's the skill sets that a lot of the Scandinavian immigrants came over here with and what they knew how to do. And
the picture that's forming in my mind is he was one of those clever people that realized, I don't need to go and break my back cutting down the trees. I can be one of those guys that provides a service to the people that are breaking their back cutting down the trees.
I think so.
Yeah.
There's been many a time when I wish I had the chance to meet my great-grandfather and tell him where we're at today and what we've accomplished with this company he founded 97 years ago. I can only assume what he was like since we didn't have that chance to interact.
I want to ask you about your story, but you're a fourth-generation owner of this company, and that's almost unheard of today. So if you don't mind, let's spend a couple minutes talking about that great-grandfather that you never met, a chef from the early 1920s. Through 4 generations, I'm in your office today, and this is a big warehouse, and you're having a hiring fair in July of a pandemic. Fill in that gap.
It's a long gap to fill in, 97 years, but
right.
If you look statistically and you read a lot about family businesses, you'll see that there's only less than 3% survive into the 4th generation. Very uncommon that families are able to keep something like this going for the length of time our family has. What my great-grandfather started was a mom and pop company. He and one partner, and they went to work and eventually had a handful of people working for them in the business, servicing Grays Harbor County. Founded in the town of Aberdeen. Grays Harbor County is where the name Harbor Wholesale originally came from.
I've seen some of these archive photos. What were they selling?
The company was founded under the name of West Coast Produce Company. And in their terms, produce at that time meant butter, eggs, and cheese. That was the dominant lines that they started with, really dairy-type products. And they sold butter, eggs, and cheese to every kind of venue that would use those products, from schools to restaurants, hospitals, grocery retail stores, you name it. Everybody in the local county was a potential customer, the way they looked at it.
Right. Okay, so started off with the basic staples in a timber town. What happened next?
My grandfather and his brother grew up working in the family business with their dad, until the point that My grandfather went off to college at WSU. During that time, World War II broke out, and my grandfather wound up joining the Army and heading over to Europe to participate in the war. And he ultimately came back, went to school, finished his degree in education, and was planning to be a teacher when his dad said, hey, I'd like you to come back and help out with the family business. And my grandfather and his brother both jumped into the family business as well and saw an opportunity there. In 1954, they changed the name of the company to Harbor Wholesale Grocery and really began to expand the lines of products that were sold beyond just butter, eggs, and cheese and into more, mainstream grocery and food service products.
Right.
But again, selling to everybody that would buy what they had.
Uh-huh. And I assume you know your grandfather.
I did know my grandfather.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he passed away back in 2000, but had the great pleasure of working with him for a number of years.
Uh-huh.
As my dad and my uncle got involved in the business, working with my grandfather, they saw opportunity to grow the company, but recognized that starting in Aberdeen, Washington is not the best place from a distribution standpoint. Set a plan to move the company up to the I-5 corridor and eventually landed in Tumwater. So they saved their money, spent all of their savings to build a warehouse that they owned at the time, and took the risk to make a big leap with the family company. At that time, I don't know the exact number of employees we had when the company moved from Aberdeen to Olympia, but I'm going to say it was around 20.
Where are you at today?
Today we have about 650 team members at Harbor.
Restaurants have gotten a lot of attention, a lot of overdue attention, I think, in terms of how people are perceiving the industry and the nuances of the industry. I mean, hospitality is almost like a form of theater in a lot of ways, and it hasn't done the industry a lot of good, in my opinion, because people have a lot of misconceptions or there's a lot of blind spots as to what it means to run a restaurant. And I've used this analogy before, but sometimes in terms of regulations, there's this idea that because of a few bad apples, restaurant owners are these mustache twirling villains that are fueling their yachts with the corpses of their downtrodden workforce. And people don't really recognize that for every $1 spent in a restaurant, if an owner is lucky and they've got their system set up in such a way, they're taking home a nickel. 95 cents out of every dollar goes into paying a workforce, supporting their lives and getting good quality product and keeping the building safe and sanitary. And through COVID-19, people have really started to understand what the reality of a restaurant is, because now we're on the front lines. How has it been for that layer behind the front line? Someone who took a chance to grow his company and now huge disruptions that change everything that we do. Talk about this adjustment period for you, for a president of a distribution company.
There's a lot to talk about there, Andy.
Yeah, take your time.
And I think I'll start where you started and how we view things in our company. And we always begin with the customer in mind first, and sort of work backwards from there into how we can best adapt and support and be there to help our customers be successful. And to your point, what I see in restaurant owners, particularly a lot of the independent companies that we deal with, restaurant owners are people that want to serve others, that find passion in serving others, or people that have a passion for food, that like to create an experience, that want to share their creativity with other people. And, we've coined this term in our company, which is life happens around the table. That those connections, those relationships that are formed in restaurants, and somebody who's willing to share their passion with others is a very special part of our economic fabric and our social fabric. And so restaurants, to me, play so much more of a role than just business and making money. To your point, a nickel for every dollar sold in a restaurant is not a lot to take to the bottom line. And I don't know very many people that dive into the restaurant business with the idea of getting rich.
There's a good chance that high number of restaurants that don't make it in 5 years, I think a lot of those people are represented by those who just don't understand what they're getting into. I think the ones that really make it are the ones that are the most passionate about it.
That's right. Yeah. I'm told there's a lot easier ways to make money, but
yeah.
So that's a good segue, Andy, into the distribution business. So And some things haven't changed, whether we had 20 employees and 5 million in sales when we moved up here to Olympia to today with 650 people and, around 800 million in sales. Every one of those sales dollars in distribution translates into about a penny of profit.
Wow.
If everything is done correctly.
Right.
And there isn't a COVID outbreak and operations are running smooth and, all of the team members are doing what they need to be doing to help our customers be successful.
Yeah.
So it's been this thin margin business. And, people have asked me over the years, like, why would you be in the business? Why would you take that risk? For us, I appreciate the stability of the food business. We're fortunate. We're diversified as a company. So, we service not only retail stores, but also restaurants. So when one side of the industry is taking a downturn, as restaurants have recently, retail stores that we provide product to have had an influx of volume and upswing in sales. And that's really helped us balance this out. And when I look forward as a family-operated company, I think a lot about the future and about sustainability of our business. I'm fortunate to have opportunity as fourth-generation owner. I'd love to see the fifth and sixth generation come into this company, but we have to be prepared for all the different things that could happen that may have a negative effect on the business.
I mean, I thought the restaurant profit margin was a challenge. I didn't realize how much of a challenge the distribution side was. Why do you do it?
Why do I do it? And that's a great question. So I have a huge passion for our business, and it's multifaceted. I think I have the coolest job in the world. The opportunity to lead such a large team and to create and look around this business, and I see everything from brands that I've had a hand in creating to excellent people I've had the opportunity to hire over the years to a company that is rooted and founded in what was started by my great grandfather who came here from Sweden. And I can't imagine a better opportunity, career-wise and investment-wise. It's also a fun business in that we do a lot of different things here and a lot of different challenges. I mean, first and foremost, it's a relationship business, getting out and dealing with a restaurant owner, getting to know them, building that friendship and being there to support them, or, your local community grocer, neighborhood store. These are the lifeblood of neighborhoods and communities throughout the Northwest. When you think about a neighborhood, what do they have? They have a restaurant, they have a small store.
Right.
That's where people gather. That's where relationships are built, and we're a part of that, and I'm proud of that. On the flip side, it's a complex logistical system that we operate, and it's fun trying to solve problems and understand supply chain. It's even fun to go jump behind the wheel of a semi-truck and go drive around once in a while. We've got a lot of toys parked out back, and when I was a kid, I liked big trucks and things like that, like most kids do.
You like big trucks and you cannot lie.
That's right.
So you say you have the coolest job, and you just mentioned a lot of things. Do you like them all sort of equally? I mean, if you could just focus in on one aspect of what you were talking about, where you get to develop a team and create some unique integration points or go have fun driving a big toy, if you could just had to do one of those things, could you choose one?
I think a common thread of what I really enjoy in this business is the people interaction and the relationships. So, creating a culture, creating an environment within our company where people want to come to work every day. They're excited to be here. They're not here because they get a paycheck. Well, I mean, everybody is
that's
here.
Why, that's why we go, but we can get a paycheck lots of places.
There's lots of places for a paycheck, but I want this to be a place where people have fun doing what they do, where they're passionate for it, and they can have a rewarding career and be successful.
And you've got some long tenure on your team. And when I first heard about you, it was because you were voted the best employer in the Pacific Northwest. And what was the qualifier for that?
Well, I think we're the best, Andy, but I'm not sure that that's exactly how the award was defined. But
somebody thought so, and they printed an award, and they actually made something to prove it.
Yeah,
you're being humble, but I'm not asking you to brag. I'm just curious. 2014, 2016, how many times has this happened?
Yeah, over the years, on several occasions, we've been awarded as one of the best companies in Washington to work for by the Puget Sound Business Journal, Seattle Business Magazine. They do polls every year. And that's been important to us to be that best place to work and be the best opportunity for each team member that comes into our organization. Everybody has different skills, backgrounds, different stage of their career, but we want them to be able to succeed when they're here at Harbor.
So let's talk about workforce. You put so much of a emphasis of your time and focus on this specific topic. I'd like to hear you unpack it in your words.
Yeah, so I'm kind of an eternal optimist, or I wouldn't be an entrepreneur.
Right.
You know, like many of our restaurant owner customers, we share that in common. And as you pointed out, we made a big investment, a big acquisition last fall in buying the local FSA business. And of course, when you make an acquisition, you know, we walk in and get up on stage as the new owners of the company and tell everybody there how important people are to us and how values are where our company is founded and how they will have an opportunity to be successful in this company. On day one, you know, when you're up there talking to people, those are just words. You know, people look at what you do and not what you say. You know, 6 months later, when you run into a pandemic and a massive challenge,
as one does,
you know, I saw that coming, sure. That wasn't on my radar at all. But the reality is it's an opportunity because immediately 6 months into our relationship with our new team members at Harbor Food Service, we had to show them how we were going to deal with a crisis, a very serious crisis that had a huge financial impact on our company. It's in times of crisis when people show their true colors about how they stand behind their values and how they show up and how committed they are to the things that they say. And I believe we've done a good job, the best we can, to deliver on that promise to those team members at Harbor Food Service during this time. You know, we recognize, again, this is a relationship business, and the culture at FSA, culture at Harbor meshed and aligned well. A lot of tenured, long-term people with excellent experience, with the right attitude towards customer service, well aligned. You know, as we work to invest through this difficult time, we're going to be in a position of strength coming out of it because we have stood behind our values. We've kept our team engaged. And, you know, in any acquisition, there's going to be change. That change sometimes can drag on and it can be difficult and people have a hard time accepting change. That's in our nature as humans. But when you're in the midst of a crisis, change has to happen and it has to happen rapidly.
Right.
And so some of the things that may have drug on and may have been difficult for us, I think, happened quickly. We sort of ripped the Band-Aid off, to use that expression, and made moves that we needed to make to get the business on track where it was ultimately headed. And so we'll be there faster and we'll be there stronger and well-positioned.
Change is constant. You didn't just start to focus on your workforce in March of 2020. This has been part of your company values for quite some time. It's how you go to business. I feel like you do it because it's the right thing to do, to develop and invest in people and give them a place and a community outside of their homes. But I'd like to hear you talk about that, if I'm right, and how has that benefited this company? How has that indirect investment in people affected the bottom line?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, I can tell you it goes back to my beginning at the company, you know, as a family member coming in and working in the warehouse and driving trucks and working in sales, doing all the different functions of the business. I had a chance to, you know, observe how I was treated as an employee, you know, how different managers led people, how the people that were my peers during those times reacted to that. And it gave me a lot of perspective on how I decided to shape my own leadership approach. You know, because I've worked all those roles, I think I have a huge appreciation for the voice that comes from every single team member on the team. I hate org charts and titles. You know, everybody's voice is equally as important, whether your title is vice president and manager, or whether you're here to clean out the trucks when they come back at the end of the routes every day. You know, the people that do the work often know best and have the best ideas on what we can be doing to be a better company. And I don't think a lot of leaders give people that voice and opportunity to be a part of something, and it gives them a sense of ownership. You know, they've created what Harbor is. They're a part of what Harbor is. It's not just my company that they work at and get a paycheck at. It's our company. We built this together, and I try to talk about that a lot.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
So what I'm hearing is you empower people to play to their strengths, but you also take this approach that we are all facing the same direction here. And sometimes that means I'm cleaning out a truck. Do you feel like that level of trust that you extend to everybody and that you project on your own, that, you know, there aren't any clear boundaries around you, that there's none of this, that's not my job kind of a thing? Do you feel like that motivates people and you get more out of giving than taking?
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. You use the word trust, which I think is important, and it's the foundation of all relationships. And, I believe in trusting first, unless there's a reason not to trust somebody.
Right.
And so we give people a lot of latitude and a lot of trust to do the right thing. And we tried hard to articulate clear values on what the right thing is in our company. And I think that's really important, with that trust and that latitude that we extend to people without kind of boundaries and rails about what's acceptable and what's not. It'd be difficult to lead with that type of approach.
Can you think of an example of maybe some innovations or organizational efficiencies that have been born from those sets of values?
Yeah, countless. It's a small, a lot of them are small incremental type adjustments that happen every single day. There's never we always say there's never a silver bullet that's going to just make this company better. Not when you're operating on that 1% profit margin. It's not like, I found that one thing that's going to get us to 2%.
Yeah.
It's an aggregate of, 50 different little things that just we tweaked or improved from a driver coming back and saying, you know what, you sent me on this route, and if I would have turned right a couple of blocks earlier and gone there first, the customer would be happier and I wouldn't be covering as many miles. Okay, we adjust, we make it better. It's just that constant, continuous improvement type of mindset that I think we build into everybody.
But you get that from creating a space of trust that this driver can come back and feel safe saying, hey, I think you could have done this better and here's why.
And that's, that's been hard to do for a lot of companies, particularly with the introduction of technology. We have all kinds of fancy software that routes trucks and, tells us where to go and what time we're going to show up and arrive. And
have you heard the term Kaizen? Constant state of improvement. You're always looking to constantly improve, and that's sort of where we succeed. And maybe it's because it's so competitive. You're looking to make that penny on the dollar. A restaurateur is looking to make that 5 to 7 cents on a dollar, and that requires a mindset like an Olympic athlete would have. You're not going to be able to do anything that's going to revolutionize the way you do what you do, but you always work hard to make those incremental improvements.
That's right. And I think that penny on the dollar profit margin sometimes prevents people in our industry from doing the right thing. We often talk about, hey, let's not step over $1 to pick up the penny. Sometimes customers need things and they cost money and it doesn't make sense based on that penny that we're making, but it needs to happen because it's a long-term relationship and those customers are so valuable to us that we need to invest in whatever that service is up front so that we maintain that relationship. See too many companies focused on picking up that one penny and damage relationships along the way. And lots of examples out there. And that's been a secret to our success. Is a growing company is a lot easier to run profitably than a company that is not experiencing growth or is going backwards.
So, Justin, we've been talking about your workforce, or more precisely, your leadership philosophy in managing your workforce, and it feels like it's very community-minded. And I also want to talk about community in a larger sense. So I think that perhaps telling the story of how you've navigated with the sudden disruption from COVID-19 and how your outreach with what you could do started from home and then spread out into the community. Can you tell that story?
We typically use algorithms based on historical demand for products to make purchases so we can, have the right inventory level. Well, all of a sudden, history was sort of out the window, and whatever happened in the past was no longer an indication of what might happen in the future.
Products coming, but demand evaporated.
Exactly. And so, so we had to, I'll use the word that's been the word of the last 3 months, which is pivot, and, find an outlet for the excess food inventory we had on hand. So We turned over every stone we could find, obviously trying to sell to our customers that are still in business, to sell some through retail channels, but then also turned to our local communities and said, what can we do? How can we help? And, we believe support for community philanthropy starts at home, starts with our own team and family here at Harbor, and then extends out to our customers and to their team members and into those local communities. So starting with our own team, we started assembling food boxes and distributed out to their families to help them through this difficult time. We were forced to lay some people off, based on that disruption in demand, something in my 30 years of working in this business I've never been faced with, and something we never want to have to do as a family organization. But this has been...
It must have been a pit in the stomach moment for you. Put such a high value on creating this positive space for people to belong in, and then have to break up the family, so to speak, in so many ways. That must have been tough.
Yeah, extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And I think the only way to get through that is just to think about the long-term health and survival of the company,
right.
And to say that, short-term, this is going to suck. There's no other way to put it. Mm-hmm. But long-term, it's going to put us in the best position to provide for our team and their families.
Yeah, bring them back.
Because we need to, be financially viable and healthy.
We've been talking about distribution. So you as an early surplus, and you repurpose that to take care of the family, and then reach out and take care of your neighbors, the restaurant community, to figure out what did they need. What was the layer after that? You talked about community.
So layer after that, again, we came up with a program and applied a name to it, Harbor Cares, mm-hmm. and went out to support some of the members of the restaurant community that have been impacted. And then, beyond that, working with community partners who also, have been trying to help others, places like Food Lifeline, Union Gospel Mission, food banks throughout our local communities, trying to support them any way we could. So in some cases it might have been with food, in other cases it might have been with our expertise and resources in transportation to help move product, or, helping them find equipment to get food out to people. Just really in it, I don't think we were entirely unique in that. I saw a lot of people band together, support each other, and help communities get through this.
Right.
And food security became a number one priority for a lot of people, and mm-hmm. it's an area where we had excess resources and we could help. So, I think it's kind of counterintuitive. You would think that when times are good and you have excess profits, you would give because you have excess money.
Right.
In this case, we just knew it was the right time to give. Times were challenging. Nobody had excess profit to give during this time, but we said, this is the time when people need our support, so right. We're going to dive deep and do everything we can.
Well, I think it's in our nature as people, really. I think that so much outweighed attention is given to those bad apples, those few bad apples. But, it's times like these that I really honestly believe that we're built 90% out of altruism. And as long as we don't spend a lot of that 10% looking at how selfish we can be and amplifying that, I think that, given the opportunity, I think that people rise to it. If they can just decouple themselves from their darker aspects, I suppose.
That's right. I think in challenging times like this, people need support. They need a family around them. They need a community to be a part of. They need, a cause or a mission to fulfill. And I think being a part of our organization has really helped people through this time. And
so let's talk about community. This is a local company, 4 generations. One of your primary focus points for support during this disruption has been community in layers. It started with community of your company, and then the community of your business neighbors, your partners in restaurant and markets, and you extended that out into general communities that they serve. So, I'm just going to bet that you have a lot to say about community. So I'm going to turn it over to you. This is a big thing for you, your family, and this company. Yeah?
It's definitely a big thing for us. And, again, it's that penny we create with every dollar we sell in this business. We like to share a good portion of that with our local communities. And part of that comes by being just an awesome employer and, a great provider of job opportunities where we operate, not just here in Lacey, Washington, but in our other distribution centers and out in the field where we have drivers and salespeople as well. That's where it all begins for us, is making sure that community that we've created that are part of the Harbor family here are supported. As you mentioned, we love to support our customers in any way we can to help their brand, their operation be successful, be recognized. We sponsor a lot of different organizations throughout our community, different nonprofits, and all different types, and we try to find things that our team members are passionate about, that we're passionate about, and we're happy to get behind it and give back. Number of examples, particularly in our local communities here. On the food service side, we've been all about trying to help the restaurant industry and help develop people and train and support organizations that provide jobs and skills and opportunity for restaurant workers. So
you've been putting out, I've been doing this on repeat, putting out food packages, like family grocery kits to help distribute with partnerships with other restaurants so they can hit some of the hard hit restaurant employees.
That's right. Yeah. So that's a great example. Part of our Harbor Cares initiative that we put together is to go to, we picked out a customer in each market that we serve. We call them our local leaders. And these are partners that we've leaned on to help us.
Restaurant owners and operators.
This mission. Exactly. Yeah. And so we'll go to that restaurant owner, provide the food packages to be distributed out to families. They're intended to go to displaced restaurant workers and their families. And that sense of community that's created has been awesome, because we'll use one restaurant as a point of distribution, and they invite employees from other restaurants around the community to come to their place of business to pick up a free care package and to help support them. Prior to COVID, two restaurants might have been down the street from each other competing for customers, and now they're just each stepping up to try and support each other and make sure the industry comes through this in a big way.
Has this focus on community, has this been something that's been important to the values of this company since 1923, or is it something that has kind of ebbed and flowed with the times?
I can speak from my own experience. Since I was a kid, I've had a great example to follow in my grandfather, my dad, my uncle, have all been big on community giving and supporting. And, there are times when they weren't making any money running this business, and they were still supporting, everybody around town that came to them and asked for sponsorship or asked for support. And it was a good example to follow, and a tradition, we have carried on with. I think we're excited to support our customers. When you see the Harbor brand out there to the average consumer, we're kind of behind the scenes, right? Mm-hmm. We're distribution. They might see our trucks, but we're not trying to market our brand out to the end consumer. We want to support our customers in their community, right, and elevate their brand, so they can, attract more guests into their restaurant or into their store. That's how we can support best, I think, as a behind the scenes type of operator. Community market, the country store, the local restaurant, those are things that bring people together and bring communities together.
Right.
I think personally the little country store down the road from my house I've probably visited more frequently since COVID, because I'd rather walk in a small store. It's not crowded. I can get what I need and get in and out quick, and there's a connection. In a time when we've been kind of quarantined at home, quarantined to our neighborhood. Right. To get out and see some other local people and to support that local business feels good right now. And I think there's I hope to see people continue to band together, continue to support their local restaurateurs, their local markets, and and start bringing communities together in a bigger way than ever.
That focus and commitment towards community and towards local, not only is that in line with your values, but it's also kind of bread and butter, isn't it? You're not this faceless, publicly traded company that is giving lip service to local. You are local.
That's right. I mean, we are local. We're the real deal. We don't have to, live and die by our quarterly results.
Mm-hmm.
We can do the right thing and make decisions based on our long-term thinking, where we want to take the business over generations, not over, second quarter of 2020.
Right. I'm not queuing you up on an agenda here, but this is a good opportunity to talk about, compare and contrast a company like Harbor Food Service or a company like Harbor Wholesale versus the Sysco's and the US Foods and these multinational distribution companies that have to exist at a certain strata of anonymity when it comes to that local touch, because they're touching such a strata, and you are focused right here in one area where all of your customers are basically living in the same world as you. How would you expand on that? I mean, what do you think that the benefits or drawbacks are to that?
It's just a difference in objectives, I think, between an independent, local, family-owned company and these larger publicly traded businesses. Like it or not, any large publicly traded company has to answer to shareholders, they have to answer to the public market, and they have to think about their stock price every day and how Wall Street's going to react to what they say and what they do and the decisions they make. As a local independent company, we can legitimately do what's right for our customers, focus on our local market area, and think about what's going to work best for those relationships for the long term. It's a relationship business. It's not transactional. We look to build partnerships over decades and really stand behind doing everything we can to help our communities and customers be successful. And that's a huge differentiation, not only that goal in mind, but just pure understanding of what's going on right here in the Pacific Northwest, and not having to develop programs that are kind of a cookie cutter program that could fit for anybody across the country.
Yeah. So do you feel, I'll just say, I'll use US Foods as an example, just because. US Foods, do you feel like it's easier for them to get inroads with other national brands than, say, it would be for Harbor Food Service to get in with a local franchise of a national brand? And conversely, do you feel like Harbor Food Service is better positioned for those local brands? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And, to be perfectly honest, I think we have a harder time making inroads with some of the national brands. If let's say they have locations throughout the 50 states across the country, we don't have that distribution footprint. We're part of a network of distributors, of independent, family-owned companies like Harbor that do allow us to serve all 50 states.
That IMA?
That's DMA.
DMA, okay.
Distribution Marketing Advantage.
Okay.
And we do some business with national chains through that network. But our bread and butter, our focus is certainly on the local restaurants, the local chains. That's, where we can be our best. We have access to local vendors that matter to those customers. Every restaurateur wants to differentiate, wants to offer something different from the person down the street, and create a unique experience for their guests. And with the broad array of suppliers and our connection in the local market that we have, we can provide a multitude of different solutions. And I think that's difficult for the large national companies to do, because they have such a focus on pushing their own brands that fit for all of their customers across the country, down to these independent restaurants. And it might not be a good fit for them. It doesn't satisfy what it is they're trying to accomplish to serve their guests. And
so what would you say to a local Washington restaurant owner that is just starting to hear about Harbor Food Service?
The first thing I would say would not be a statement. It would be questions.
Mm-hmm.
I would ask that new restaurant owner, why did you start your business? What are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? what is it that's important to you about building this restaurant out? Why did you decide to do this? What are you thinking about in terms of food and menu offering? And I'd try to learn as much as I possibly could about their goals and their objectives. And from there, I could start to talk to them about how Harbor can help them be successful in those objectives. But, for me to come in and talk to them how great Harbor is, not knowing what it is they're trying to accomplish, is not what's best serving the customer, which is what we're all about. We make the statement, we're obsessed with your success. Well, I need to know how you define success before I can tell you how we can help.
Yeah. Good point. Success for some people is to create something that they can pass down for generations. Success to others is they can build up something to sell it, right?
That's right. It's all your goals. And people ask me occasionally, do you own this company? Do you run this company for the money? Is that the motivator?
Mm-hmm.
No, if the motivator was the money, I'd sell the company because
Yeah.
I'd have a lot more money.
Uh-huh.
It's it's that passion for the business and
Right.
really creating something great and being a part of these communities and their success.
Early in our conversation, you were talking about your family history and Generation 2, your grandfather and his brother. Your grandfather was called into service for World War II, and I feel like that was the last worldwide disruption. And I feel like that generation has been called the greatest generation. But I don't think they were born great. I think that they rose to adversity. And I feel like we are rising to an adverse times right now. It's very different, and the world is very different going into it, but it's going to have an impact on us. We could take it and make it something great, or, we could be that 10% non-altruistic darker sides of things. And so I guess I wanted to contextualize this period of time as a disruptive moment, like it was for your grandfather and his brother, and just kind of get your sense on where do you think we're going to be, let's say a year or 2 or 3 from now.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting comparison you bring up, World War II to what we're dealing with today. One thing I see, and I wasn't around during World War II.
Likewise.
But, it appeared to me that our country, unified together towards a common goal, towards a common cause, or maybe even a common enemy. And we became stronger as a result. And we as Americans said, we're helping, people around the world, and we're doing this together. And to the point where people, volunteered to join the military and risk their lives and to go overseas and fight a war on behalf of our country.
Yeah, that's also, to hear you phrase it like that is also very interesting, because we as a country certainly have not unified right now, have we? We can't even get people to volunteer to wear masks.
And that's the distinction I was looking to draw exactly, and that's what bothers me personally and is concerning. Until we come together and we align, we've got some difficult things ahead of us. In the midst of a pandemic and other social issues that are going on right now that need attention and leadership and until we can come together and collectively work towards that common cause, it seems like our country will be fragmented and it'll be a difficult recovery.
Yeah, we don't have to get political. It's probably better if we don't get political, but I think that the evidence is all around us that we came into this culturally in a state of fragmentation, and we haven't been unified through this adversity yet, have we? On the most personal levels, I think that we absolutely have, but on that larger strata, we really haven't, have we?
We haven't, and I think, coming into this crisis as leading an organization, with 650 people, I recognized immediately the first thing we need to do to fight a crisis is to unify our team together towards our new common goals and our new, mission for how we're going to push forward through this.
Right.
And that's very important, as we lead going forward. So, like you said, I'm not going to get political, and we'll leave it at that. But that said, I am optimistic for the future. Mm-hmm. I think we, as an industry, as a country, we've dealt with a lot of different challenges over the years, and have been resilient. I think that there will be restaurateurs that don't survive this. There'll be some that just choose not to continue to operate in this environment, or, in some cases they've run a successful business, they've shut down. The heavy lifting of reopening and putting all that energy behind starting their business up again is daunting. But with that comes, I think, new entrepreneurs to the scene, maybe additional customers for other restaurants that might have been struggling. The market will eventually level out. I'm certainly hopeful that there's a vaccine for COVID here in the not too distant future,
or treatment in the short term, something, right?
And I think we want to go out. We want to dine together. We want to experience life around the table again, and we want to be part of. We're social people.
Right.
We don't want to be isolated at home, living in fear of illness or death. And the sooner we can safely get out and get back out into the public, I think there's a good future ahead for the restaurant industry in particular.
Yeah. To that point, a lot of studies have been coming out recently on loneliness. I mean, we were already experiencing an epidemic of despair before an actual pandemic, and it's been kind of punctuated, but it's brought a lot of science out that shows just the biologic imperative of social connections are that it's to live in isolation is like something like 10 times negatively impactful on your health than smoking.
Right.
And, our industry is a very social industry. Before we close that, I kind of wonder, and again, I'm not getting political, but I am building a cultural parallel here. You value community, and you seem to really be personally passionate about leadership, like modern, like actual leadership, and not do as I say leadership. But how hard do you think it would be to unify your company and to keep everyone facing in that same direction had you just started now? I mean, you kind of came into this with more of a unified organization.
Yeah, and I think it's not just Harbor. It's any organization, country, group of people. You need, I think, for people to unify, they need a noble purpose. They need to know why. What are we unifying around? What are we trying to accomplish? If we could somehow provide people with that noble purpose of why we do what we do, mm-hmm. and why their contribution matters, we can engage people, we can bring people together. Whether you're a new company starting today or whether you've been around 97 years, if you have a noble purpose that you're aligning people around to move towards, and it's a better place than where they're at now, and they feel passionate about it, I think it can be done.
How would you describe Harbor's noble purpose?
That's a deep question to answer. I think on a number of different fronts, our noble purpose is to fortify communities, support local communities, and do that through the local small businesses that are the fabric of those communities. Whether it be, again, mom and pop restaurant, whether it be the neighborhood store. The fact that we can help those entrepreneurs succeed and have the tools they need to achieve their dream, that's noble purpose for us. And internally, it's providing that same type of opportunity for the people that work here at Harbor. Everybody has career goals and aspirations and things they want to accomplish in life, and we want this to be a place where that can happen for the right individuals that are on board.
Mm-hmm. How about you personally? How would you describe your personal noble purpose in life?
I think in general terms, it's a lot of what I just spoke to. I think a lot of us in life want to have a positive impact on other people. And I've been given an incredible opportunity in this family business and what we've built to have a positive impact on a large number of people. Mm-hmm. And I take the responsibility seriously, and I enjoy it. I appreciate that. It gives me a lot of pride in what I do, and it's something that I want my family to be a part of, and want them to take pride in what we do, and to look to myself, to our other leaders at Harbor, as people who are not just leaders of this business, but community leaders, industry leaders, people just doing the right thing.
You've always impressed me as a very accessible and a approachable person, and I'll be honest. So kind of talked around this. I work for you. I'm the restaurant consultant at Harbor Food Service, and I've worked for other companies that were family owned and multi-generational. And I'll just be honest, I came into it with a fair amount of skepticism. Okay, this person is born into this, and that often comes with a sense of entitlement. Never caught a whiff of it off of you. I don't know if we'll keep this in the show or not, but I'll just tell you. What really impressed me more than anything was we were just cut the ribbon, and people were gathering on the big announcement that we are now one company. And your wife, Alexis, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And your kids were there, and they were being polite and well mannered. And your dad and mom came in, and your kids lit up because they were so happy to see Grandma and Grandpa, and Grandma and Grandpa were so happy to see them. And that was really all I really needed to see to put that skepticism out of my mind, that this is a family that was well knit, and you just can't fake a kid's enthusiasm to see a grandparent. That means something. That means that all this talk about family unity, that was the real deal.
You don't get to choose who your parents are.
Right.
You're born to who you're born to. And I feel fortunate every day that I've had such a great family around me over the years, so supportive. That's something we want everybody involved here to be a part of, to feel connected to.
All right. Well, Justin Erickson, I can't thank you enough for being on Infinite Restaurants.
You bet. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for the opportunity to share my story and share the Harbor story. Thanks for your time, Andy.
Yeah, we'll have you back. Thanks for yours. Justin Erickson is the fourth generation owner and CEO of Harbor Foods Group, the greatest local broadline distributor that we have here in the Pacific Northwest, and I can't wait to have you back on the program. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you, Andy.
With that, that's another episode of Infinite Restaurants. If you'd like to know more about Harbor Food Service, check the show notes for links to their social media and internet pages. And thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Cheers.